Friends, according to the UN, there are 251 countries, and life in them is very different. Where is the best place to live? I will tell you which country is considered the richest in the world, which other states are in the top 10, and where they live in poverty despite natural wealth. To compile the ranking, indicators of gross domestic product per capita were used. This GDP is the value of all goods and services produced in a year divided by the number of people living in the country. Thus, the fewer people living in a developed economy, the richer they are. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, do so and leave your comment. And we are starting, and we will start from the end of the Golden 10. Brunei Darusallam, GDP per capita, $74,653 per year. In 10th place in the top richest countries in the world is Brunei, or Brunei Darussalam, as it is more correct to call this country, the existence of which many do not even know. This is a sultanate, that is, the positions of religious leader, minister of defense, and head of state are held by one person, and other key positions are held by his relatives. The population of Brunei is only 464,478 people. The area of the state is also small, only 5.8 thousand kilometers. The country's entire economy is built on the production and sale of oil and liquefied gas. The government generously shares profits with the population. Local residents are exempt from paying taxes, medicine and education are financed by the state, and everyone receives a gift on the Sultan's birthday. The standard of living in Brunei is high, with more than 700 cars per 1,000 people. At the same time, prices in the country are relatively low, and so is the crime rate. So one of the richest countries in the world is also one of the calmest. The average salary in Brunei is about $3.5 thousand per month. Admit it, did you think that the USA is the richest country in the world? In fact, the United States ranks a modest 9th in the ranking. However, hardly anyone would dare call this result bad. The largest economy in the world, counting for 20% of global GDP. The United States is not only one of the richest countries in the world, but also tops the ranking of countries with the largest number of billionaires. There is a high standard of living and good salaries. Norway. The richest countries in the world in terms of natural resources are not necessarily ahead of others, because the secret is not in the availability of resources, but in the ability to extract maximum profit from them. And this is where Norway really excels. Since gas and oil were discovered in the country half a century ago, the welfare of Norwegians has been constantly growing. At the same time, the woodworking and fishing industries are also actively developing. The population of Norway is 5.408 million. Life expectancy and its standard are high. Great attention is paid to social policy, thanks to which there are practically no poor people in the kingdom, but there are equal opportunities for all citizens. Prices in one of the richest countries in the world are very high. The minimum wage is barely enough to cover the basics. Taxes are also high, up to 30% of income. UAE, GDP per capita, 78,225 per year. Another one of the most resource-rich countries in the world is the United Arab Emirates. The UAE began selling oil in 1962, and almost immediately after that, the country's economy began to grow. At the same time, the government also developed the tourism industry. Now every 10th citizen of the country is a millionaire. There are 9.365 million people living in the country, and they live quite well. The minimum salary is 4,800 dirhams, 1,280. The UAE is famous for its high standard of living. The state pays for education and healthcare, and subsidizes food and living expenses in the country. Citizens of the Emirates retire at the age of 49. One of the richest countries in the world in terms of oil can afford such a luxury. Switzerland, GDP per capita, $84,658 per year. This is not the first time Switzerland has been ranked among the richest countries in the world. The economy of the Confederation is very stable thanks to the policy of monetary long-term provision. It stands on 3 pillars: the famous Swiss banking system, the production of no less famous Swiss watches, and pharmaceutical corporations. Industry and tourism also contribute. The country's population is 8.703 million and is gradually increasing every decade. A high standard of living is combined with high salaries and the same prices. Macau, GDP per capita $85,611 per year. The next state on our list of the richest countries in the world in 2023 is Macau. The history of Asian Las Vegas is quite instructive. In 2001, the gaming industry was liberalized here, and since then, more than 40 casinos have opened in a country where only 686,000 people live on an area of 118 square kilometers. Residents of Asian countries are very gambling, and this peninsula in the Hong Kong region has become very popular among tourists. Gamblers have contributed to the growth of the economy. Everything changed with the start of the coronavirus pandemic. Traveling around the world suddenly became an unaffordable luxury, and Macau's economy faced a serious crisis. Now it is recovering, but the purchasing power of the population is still lower than in pre-COVID times. Qatar, GDP per capita, $112,189 per year. The name of the richest Arab country in the world is unknown to many. Qatar is a small state occupying only 11,570 square kilometers. The population is 2.688 million and is constantly growing. What allowed Qatar to enter the top 5 richest countries in the world? The answer will not be unexpected. Like many other states, the country owes its wealth to oil and gas. The economy of the state, most of which is occupied by barren desert, is built precisely on the extraction and export of these minerals, which provide Qatar with more than 55% of its GDP. Now it's clear why Qatar is one of the richest countries in the world. The state authorities wisely manage natural wealth and develop, thanks to oil and gas production, such industries as tourism, industry, and the state airline Qatar Airways, so that the economy does not depend entirely on oil and gas. The minimum wage in the country is only $275. Prices are high, but the standard of living is also high. The state pays for medicine, pays benefits, and provides the indigenous population with high salaries and favorable loans. Ireland, GDP per capita $124.96 per year. For several years now, Ireland has been included in the top 10 richest countries in the world. It owes its unprecedented growth in GDP to the tax reform carried out in 2015. The country's economic performance depends mainly on foreign trade and industrial development. The population of one of the richest countries in the world by GDP is just over 5 million. The minimum wage in the country is €1,756 per month, but in reality the Irish earn much more, and they are not embarrassed by high prices in stores. High taxes also do not bother the country's citizens, who know that this money will one way or another go to the prosperity of their state. Singapore, GDP per capita $131,580 per year. The next state included in the top 3 richest countries in the world is Singapore. The excellent state of the economy is explained not so much by natural resources as by a developed market system. The small state actively exports consumer goods, electronics, pharmaceutical products, and financial services. The state-owned airline also brings in substantial income. A sound financial policy and attracting foreign investment helped the country reach the top. The population of the city-state, which is increasingly called a global financial center, is 5.454 million. Singapore ranks 13th in the ranking of the most expensive cities in the world. But salaries here are also high, so the population is by no means poor. The standard of living here is considered the highest in Asia, which is not surprising for the world's leading economy. Luxembourg. What is the richest country in the world? This is the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, which is not so easy to find on the map. The tiny state ranks first in the ranking of the richest countries in the world for the simple reason that it is declared an offshore zone, thanks to which it attracts large investments. It is the largest financial center in Europe, where more than 2,000 banking institutions and more than 1,000 investment funds are registered. At the same time, the country has a well-developed industry, and despite its small size, Luxembourg's area is 2,856 square kilometers. The country with the highest GDP is one of the largest exporters of cast iron and iron. The population of the richest country in the world in 2023 is 640,000 people, but there is huge money circulating here and the economy is thriving. And what about Russia? After all, this country tops the list of the richest countries in the world in mineral resources, and the total value of all Russian resources is an unimaginable $75.7 trillion. Russia is not only included in the list of the richest gas countries in the world, but also occupies an honorable first place in it. This seems to automatically mean that the entire population of the country is prosperous, but the economy is somewhat more complicated. Russia's GDP is only 12,194.78, and Russia ranks 61st in the world in terms of this indicator. There is no reason to believe that she will be in the top 10 anytime soon. It is very unlikely that, for example, in 2024, Russia will be included in the list of the richest countries in the world. Which countries are the poorest in the world? Now that we know which countries are the richest in the world, it's time to find out which countries are at the opposite end of the list. So, which countries are the poorest in terms of GDP per capita per year? Burundi, the poorest country in the world with a GDP per capita of $800. South Sudan, GDP is equal to $843. CAR, GDP 221. Congo, GDP 1201. Somalia, GDP is 1241. The difference with the GDP of the richest countries in the world is huge. The poorest countries are located on the African continent. The main reason for the poverty of African states is long-term wars, low literacy, and high levels of corruption. At the same time, the Central African Republic has gold, oil, and diamonds. Congo also has large deposits of diamonds and cobalt, and South Sudan has a lot of oil. However, constant military conflicts and the inability to organize not only exports, but also mining, lead to the fact that the population lives in extreme poverty. I would like to hope that someday the whole world will live as well as the richest countries in the world now, but for now this remains only a dream.